वेलकम टू मेन स्ट्रीम विद हरप्रीत सिंह तूर। आप सबनों प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. We actually have a guest today with us, the council member, councilwoman Linda Lee. She is the one who won the election from Council District 23, where I also ran. We actually, believe it or not, I think our team was the best team where we, even though we were running against each other, but we were also running with each other. And she is an excellent person, no doubt about it, and very honest, and she's trying to get the things delivered to the community. And because she herself belongs to a minority community, she knows what it is. And so we have her with us. She is going to be with us for the first half of the show. So first let us welcome her to come on the show so that we can then talk about the other issues. Thanks for coming on the show, Councilwoman Linda Lee. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for having me on. Sat Shri Akal.
Okay, let's dive straight into the whole thing. Your election was for 2 years. You are up for re-election now, right?
Yes. So everyone who ran and won last year, or 2 years ago, I should say, they all have to run again because of the redistricting. All the lines were redrawn, and so all the city council districts have changed, so everybody has to run again in their new district.
In their new district. The redistricting process is still going on. It is not finished yet, is it?
No, it's pretty finalized. So the maps are now finalized. I actually gained more of Hollis. So between Hillside and Jamaica, instead of ending on the western border at 188th Street, I'm going a little bit further out to about 172nd Street.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gaining more of that.
So you gained more on that side. So you actually came more west on your district.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And what about south? Did you go any south or?
No, it stays at Jamaica Avenue. So my southern border is still Jamaica Avenue, but I just go a little bit west between Hillside and Jamaica. So
okay.
I've already started meeting with a bunch of the residents that live out there. So it's been nice getting to know them.
Okay.
Because
so it means basically, the process to get the signatures and everything, it is just around the corner, right?
Yeah, it starts end of February.
Okay. And any challenges which have thrown the hat in the ring yet?
Yeah, so there's 2 challengers that I have that I know, and so I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm sure everyone is going to do their best to run the best campaign that they can. So just try. We start petitioning, I think, end of February. And it goes on for about a month or so. And then, we have to figure out who's on the ballot, who doesn't make the ballot, and, the fundraising. So all the craziness is going on again.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let's dive into, what's going on. There are 2 issues which I definitely would like to, talk to you about. One, of course, is what is being called as a crisis on the border of undocumented people and then being bussed into New York City. Okay. On that, what's the coordination going on between mayor's office and city council? Is there any coordination, or mayor's office is totally independent from that?
Yeah, so in the beginning it was crazy because it was so fast paced, and there were the infrastructure and us absorbing all these folks coming into New York City, it wasn't set up. So in the beginning, it was a little crazy because there was a lack of communication, but it wasn't intentional or with bad intention. It was simply because I think the mayor's office is trying to figure out how to handle this huge influx of folks that are coming in. And then also on our side, we're trying to figure out on our end, what it is that we can do as a city council. So in the beginning, I think it was just craziness. But now what has happened is the mayor's office actually does have weekly calls with the city council members, just updating us on how many folks are going. coming into the city, I think when it comes to specific council districts, they're reaching out to us more separately in terms of like, whether or not we have folks that are coming into our shelters or in our area. Something unfortunate that happened last year was, the woman who was in the shelter system that committed suicide, that was actually in my council district in 23. And we actually didn't know about it when it happened, but that's because of obviously privacy issues and all of that. But then, that really sort of signaled to all of us, like, listen, we need to know what's going on also on the city council side. And we need to make sure that we're providing resources to these families, or even to know who are coming into our districts so that we know how to best navigate and help them. Because we didn't even know that this person was here with her husband and son. And we just happened to find out. And so, I think incidences like that sort of happened in the beginning were very unfortunate. But, since then, the mayor's office has been coordinating a lot more with each of the city councils.
Okay,
District
because
office.
ultimately, these people, they are going to live in different council districts, some of them in US, all 51 around, and I'm assuming that they definitely are having some of those undocumented immigrants living in Manhattan, those protected areas where we have the billionaires and trillionaires living. I'm assuming that they are also putting up some people over there, so that it's a fair distribution of those people who are coming in.
Yeah, I don't know if we have all of the data in terms of where they're going, but they definitely are being sent to all different parts of New York City, including Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens for sure. There's a lot of them. Staten Island, I think, is also absorbing some of them. But we have a lot of folks that are coming into the city, and they're being sent to a lot of the shelters as well as other housing. And it's unfortunate because this is a problem, and I think the mayor has said this himself. This is a problem that we are handling and dealing with as a city. And I know that there are nonprofit organizations that have really been stepping up to provide supportive services for a lot of these families that are coming. But, we need resources, which is why it's great that Senator Schumer fought for that funding. But I don't know if it's going to be enough, because it's definitely going to take a lot of resources to help all these families that are coming in.
And, we also have this the crime thing happening. A lot of cops who are actually veterans, they are actually retiring, they are leaving. There is a new recruitment going on. And we actually lost one of the gentlemen, a South Asian gentleman in Brooklyn, NYPD cop, who was a real young guy, got enticed into buying a car, and over there he got shot in the head and he died from that. How much is the concern about these gun violence in New York City, which is being discussed in City Council? Because after this, Roe versus Wade, and also being thrown out, the gun protections law being thrown out by, the new Supreme Court majority, which was brought in by the former president. How the City Council and Mayor, they are planning to tackle on this side, that the guns which were already flowing into New York City, that they can have some sort of a track of it or some sort of control on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of guns that are coming in through I guess they call it the iron pipeline, and it's really, it's becoming more of an issue. I think overall, as we mentioned before, the overall serious crime rate, murder rates, those have dropped, right, since previous years. However, the crimes that we're seeing increasing are with the burglaries and the car thefts and the catalytic converter thefts. But, there definitely is still a concern about public safety, and just more importantly about the guns that are flowing into not just New York State, but in other parts of the country as well. And I know that this is something that our DA, the Queens District Attorney, Melinda Katz. She's been very adamant about this, and she's been trying to work on gun buyback programs and other programs like that to get these illegal guns off the streets and out of the kids' hands and out of our community's hands. I mean, even just recently we heard about another shooting that happened, and so we're constantly hearing about these shootings that are happening across the country. And on the one hand, I do think that it's obviously a bigger systemic issue that's happening even outside of New York State. But, I think in terms of New York City itself, the NYPD and the police, they're really the enforcers, and hopefully the detectives and other folks in law enforcement are working on figuring out where these guns are getting trafficked in from. And in general, there's a lot of interventions, anti-violence work that needs to happen, and it has to start with the youth. It has to happen in the schools. So I think there's a lot of talk also about preventative services starting from elementary school age children, because we have to make sure that
I have to stop you here. We have to go for a break. After the break, we will continue right here. Right after the break, we will continue talking to Councilwoman Linda Lee. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. So we are talking to the Councilwoman Linda Lee. Let me ask you this question. We were talking about the gun violence and how it can be contained, and you were in the middle of answering about talking to the students in the middle school, high school, and even in the primary school. Can you start from where you left?
It has to be a multi-pronged approach, right? So I think what we need to do is, what I saw actually just happening at one of the high schools near me recently, is I saw that there was a long line of students that were waiting outside of the school. And it's because every once in a while, what the DOE will do is they'll bring in metal detectors. And so that's what the line is that the students have to each go through one by one. I know that conversation has been sort of, back and forth throughout the years happened. Should we or should we not have, metal detectors within schools? To be honest, that's a conversation that would have to happen with the Department of Education, because I don't know what their official policy is on that. I know that there are school safety agents that are part of their division within NYPD that are placed at the schools, but they don't carry weapons, though.
Yeah, let me stop you right there. Is not that a shame that the students are being searched before they enter the school? It's literally, I'm sorry, but it's a shame on the system which we actually have right now, where the guns are flowing so much freely that you are just scared to send your kid to the schools to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's like the number one thing first and foremost, is that we have to get the guns out of the hands, right? But in the meantime, also, I guess what I'm saying is that all of these things should be happening at the same time. So the work that the DA's office is doing to try to stop the guns from even entering into the state, and also the AG's office and the other, DAs I know across the city that are trying to address this issue. That's one thing. But also, in the case that the guns do unfortunately get into students' hands or anyone's hands, right? Because I know when I enter City Hall, I have to go through a metal detector every single time. So, in the airports and things like that. And it's an unfortunate reality for sure that we live in, because ideally speaking, we want to get to a place where we just get the guns off the streets. And so, I think that sort of has to happen at a higher level, and that's something that we need to partner with the state and federal folks on for sure, because that's not something that we as New York City can fight alone. So it involves, I think, law enforcement at every single level.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you have to go through metal detector when you go to the City Hall. I remember we used to walk up to the steps of the City Hall without any restriction and anything, till one of the councilmen was shot and killed on the City Hall steps. And after that, they implemented this policy. For me, on the one hand, we're talking about, free society, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and on the other hand, we are using something which should not be even in the hands of the people, just like that, to control from indirectly everything is being controlled. If I don't like what you say, I can take out the gun and shoot you. That is what is happening at certain places. Look at what happened in Michigan State University last night. There are so many issues going on. We had Sandy Hook. I think today is the 5-year anniversary of Sandy Hook, or it was yesterday, something like that.
Yeah, it was around this time.
Yes, it happened, within a day of today. I don't know exactly what date it is. And we had this Alex Jones who was saying it was a shooting of the movie. Nobody died. So we have this whole perception being created, two different universes which we are living in right now since the last president's election. Now we are walking into next election year. Beside your election, of course, your election is happening this year, which is a re-election basically. And next year we will have a Democrat and a Republican presidential election. Do you see anything positive coming out from whatever is happened or whatever happened with the Speaker McCarthy and Republicans now, that somehow there may be some light at the end of the tunnel? Or no, not yet, regarding the gun laws and assault weapons?
Definitely would have to defer to my federal colleagues on the updates of those conversations, because that's on a different level for sure in terms of.
But has there any conversation going on between you and the federal government about this issue? That how ultimately the voters are the same voters which are for you and for the federal elected officials. And I'm just assuming that there has to be some sort of conversation. If it is not happening, then I think we need to start it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all of us agree that this is an issue we need to prevent and stop in any which way. And that's why I think at every level, I know at the city, there's definitely conversations happening around this. And there's also a lot of, and the reason why I don't want to discount, and I brought up the preventative services previously, is because there's a lot of this violence interruption programs that actually have to happen first with our youth. And so I think that piece is actually really important to even prevent a lot of this violence from happening. But then, I think at every level we have to work with the DA's office, like I mentioned, and also at the federal level. I mean, the thing is, for NYPD at the municipal city level, we can try to prevent as much as possible, right? But at the end of the day, we have to figure out how to work with our state and federal legislators to make sure that the guns are not even coming through the borders. But right now, there clearly is a chain of where these folks are bringing in the guns. And so I think that's, obviously that's information we're not completely privy to because the DA's office has ongoing investigations about that. But that is something that I know that Melinda Katz has talked about very recently, quite often actually, at every event that she goes to, because that is becoming a bigger and bigger issue that we need to stop.
Okay. I know you have to leave in a few minutes. We have this earthquake in Turkey and Syria border. I was just reading more than 35,000 people are already counted for dead, and we are still counting. Okay. On the part of Turkey government, there was a slow flow of the aid to the stricken area. Is there any particular thing which is being proposed and being done at the city council level to provide any aid to those victims?
Yeah, I think we've sort of, at least on the Queen's delegation side with the Queen's Council members, we've sort of loosely talked about trying to organize something, because I do know that there are supplies that are much needed. I do have someone on my staff who's from Turkey, and her, thankfully, her close family was not in that area that was impacted, but she has been in communication with a lot of people who are there and being affected. And so we're trying to get a running list of things that they need, because there are certain things that are allowed, some things that are not. And obviously we want to try to do a drive around collecting items that could be helpful and useful to folks. And we're working, she's working with the Turkish Consul General's office to make sure that we actually are able to send those supplies that we collect over. But it's hard. I mean, it's an enormous amount of deaths and damage and recovery that's going to have to happen in Syria as well as Turkey. And so, I mean, we're trying to play our part, the very little that we can do from here, but we do want to try to be helpful because they're gonna need a lot of long-term support and aid. And so, however we can be helpful on our part, we're trying to do as much as possible.
A new soccer stadium is being proposed in Queens. Where they are looking at as far as the site is concerned, any idea?
So I think it was announced it's going to be in the Flushing Meadows Corona Park. From my understanding is that it's going to be in that park. I don't know specifically where it's going to go, but it's in that it's such a large park, and that's what I've heard in terms of where it's happening from what I last heard. So it'll be interesting to see how things look once the plans get finalized. I mean, to be honest, that's not my district, so I'm not super involved in the conversations, but it is in Francisco Moya's district, where, right next to Citi Field, and of course where the tennis courts are, where, the US Open happens. And so, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see where they put it and also how that impacts. I know that they were trying to did we end up getting in New York, trying to bid for the US in general was trying to bid for World Cup. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, World Cup actually is happening in United States, the next World Cup in 2026. Yeah. So maybe that's why they are planning on it. And in your
they're splitting it up into different cities, right? In different states.
It is between Canada, USA, and Mexico.
Yeah.
And they are splitting between East and West Coast. So I don't know exactly where the matches are going to be played, because I was in Doha. I did watch 2022 FIFA in Doha. It was amazing. Anyway, there are a lot of soccer players in your district, and you need to, I think I will appreciate if you can get some more information and get it to me so that I can share with them, because they always come to me and they ask me, oh, okay, you talk to so-and-so, you talk to so-and-so, what is happening? So that's one thing. And the other thing on Turkey also, please keep me posted. I know you have to go. Thanks for coming on the show. I will be calling you back again, and looking forward to working with you in the long term also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
We were talking to Linda Lee, the City Council woman from City Council District 23 of New York City, which covers Belrose, Floral Park, Queens Village, and Glen Oaks area. There is going to be another election. We already have sort of like, the borderline area, what the district will look like, but final district is still, there may be some changes. We don't know. In the meantime, we are also, hopefully we will get one district where Richmond Hill, Ozone Park, South Richmond Hill, that will comprise as a part of just one district instead of 4 different districts. There is still a lot of things to be done. We already had one meeting about redistricting where we did discuss what's going on and what is happening. And we may end up, some of the non-profit organizations may end up going to the state Supreme Court for what is happening. So we don't know yet. But there is one thing for sure, that there is going to be a lawsuit for getting the district boundaries done the way we should be getting. For the people who are not aware of it, I just want to, in a very nutshell, very briefly, I will talk about it. Every 10 years, census takes place. After the census, the districts are redistricted based on the population move, plus or minus. Congressional districts, assembly districts, state assembly, state senate, and city council, and whatever area we are living in. If there are districts, how they happen, this is what happens. So, having said that, the next thing which I just want to share with you is at the earthquake, more than 35,000 people have already been accounted for who have died from this earthquake. It's a horrible, horrible tragedy. Just imagine that that area is already stricken by a civil war. This is the border of Syria and Turkey. Turkey has its own issues with the Kurds, and Syria has its own internal civil war going on for a couple of years now. And all of a sudden, this earthquake struck. And now the areas are controlled by Syrian government, by the Turkey, and the aid flowing into that stricken area is controlled by one of these governments. On Turkey's side, it was slow to arrive, but finally it is arriving. The sad part is that the first 72 hours are the hours when the chances of pulling out the survivors are greater. After that, they go down really sharply. So there is not really much hope left for anybody there, but still you don't give up till the whole thing is cleaned up. So hope so. Let us pray that there is somebody who is still there, who is alive under those rubles. He can still come out alive and breathe and live with his family. It's such a tragedy. And on the other hand, let's talk about certain, which is very near and dear to me, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and which we always talk about in our faith also, in Sikhism. BBC's offices in Mumbai and Delhi, they got, Income Tax Department of India has, started the search of those offices. And of course, it is the reaction from that documentary which BBC actually posted. First, there was a reaction by banning the documentary, then blocking it on YouTube, and now this thing. And that actually reminds me of very interesting thing that a couple of months ago, Sisodia, who is education minister with Arvind Kejriwal in New Delhi, in Delhi Assembly, he was covered by New York Times and how that schools in Delhi, they have transformed the schools from what they were to what they are today. And within a couple of days after that coverage, IT department of Indian government raided his house and he was grilled for hours and hours. There are other instances also. And what is interesting, that when BJP was not there or they were in minority, they always complained about high-handedness of the government, which was Congress government at that time. That how they use all these to harass the citizens who have nothing to do with anything. Yeah, if they were doing it, now you are doing it, what's the difference? Basically, the difference is the shoe is on the other foot now. You are sitting there and you are doing exactly what was being done before. And sometime, when I look at it, it really hurts me. I was born there, I grew up there, I love the place, I still love the place. It's not that I don't. But still at the same time, I think I do have the right to criticize. If I can criticize the mayors of New York City here on their face, I think I do have the right to talk about it on the TV also, about what is happening, why it is happening. I may, get penalized for that. You never know. But yes, that freedom should be there. If you are right, answer the question. And the funny thing is, it's not that I am a fan of Mr. Gandhi, but the funny thing is, when he asked the questions to the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, about Adani, Modi, the Prime Minister of India, did not say a single word. Forget about media, he has never answered anything on the media. Even in the parliament, he used his cahoots to demonize him, and then he questioned why his last name is Gandhi. What kind of question is that? I'm really shocked at some of the things, and I'm hoping that we stop this. If we want India to be a world power, then we need to look at it very closely, that how world powers behave and what needs to be done, what should be done to make sure that you actually achieve what needs to be achieved. If you dream of it, you cannot achieve those things by suppressing the rights of your own public, the people. Because if you suppress the freedom of speech and expression, your ingenuity to invent new commodities, how to make the improvements, it gets suppressed automatically, because the first thing will come to your mind if you think of anything, that would I get penalized for if I do something, or if I say something like that? Would I get arrested? Would I be able to fight the case? So those are the things which are on the mind of the people when something like that happens, and it should not be there. Let's take a break. After the break, we will be right back. As you already know by now, if not, then you are hearing it here from me, that Nikki Haley has finally thrown her hat to be the next president of United States. We did talk about it earlier and discussed it. My take on that, okay? First of all, I'm really happy about it for two reasons. Not that she happens to be a Sikh, but because in her video which she released, she is finally using a picture of her family, which happens to be a Sikh family, showing her family to larger audience, especially to the Republican audiences. And number two, of course, she is Punjabi blood, no doubt about it. But at the same time, besides Hillary Clinton being the lady who ran for the presidential election and lost to the former President Donald Trump, she's the second one who has thrown her hat for the presidential run. Whether she will become a candidate or not, I don't know. I doubt it. But one thing is for sure, this is, again, it's my take, that maybe she is doing it because whosoever is the candidate, final candidate on the Republican side, they will definitely look at her as one of the running mate as a vice president. And if not as a vice president, then give her a really good position of secretary of something, which are the top positions within the administration. So watch for that. And also at the same time, more balloons were detected and shot. The recent one was on Lake Huron in Michigan. And yeah, there is a lot of conversation going on that these are aliens, this and that. No, there are no aliens and nothing like that. It has nothing to do with the aliens. But yes, balloons are being shot down. The previous one, which was shot down, which actually was on Montana and shot down in Atlantic Ocean, the whole thing was recovered and they have deciphered all the information. Even though There is a hue and cry from the opposition that everything should be discussed, but I assume it will not be discussed because within Republican Party, I'm sorry to say, there are people and Democrats also. I'm not saying there are not, but on Republican side, the Representative Boebert and Green, they are the extremists. They are, to me, to be honest, to me it appears they think that they are not sitting in the House of Representatives. They are sitting at a circus or at a theater, and they are just having fun. They are not there seriously to govern and talk about the issues which actually affect the Americans. They are not. I don't think so. Otherwise, why? It's funny that there was a conversation going on this morning on MSNBC. I was watching. I was home late little today, and one of the Republican strategists who actually ran the campaign for Mitt Romney, he mentioned that Congresswoman Green happens to be the first person in the history of U.S. Congress to being a freshman to holding such a serious position in the government in such a short span, without getting into the details, without getting the experience and everything, which basically shows. And when the President Joe Biden was speaking, you can see some of the reactions coming out. For me, the whole thing is being made as a circus, that a bunch of clowns got together there, sat down, and they are just having fun. And if I may say, I may be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, that to expect something serious coming out of this Congress, I doubt it. Last Congress, yes, Democrats had their own issues, but still they were able to achieve quite a few things, which we will see, we are seeing now. And I mentioned before, Mitch McConnell did work with President Joe Biden. Mitch McConnell, a Republican minority leader, and Joe Biden, the president from White House, they worked together on a lot of issues, even though the former President Donald Trump was complaining about it. My read on the former president is, if it is not mine, I will destroy it. I have seen the other presidents also who lost the election after the Bush Senior. He lost the election to Bill Clinton, and guess what? Bill Clinton and Bush Senior, they ended up being the best friends in their life, even though Bill Clinton defeated Bush Senior. And here I saw President Donald Trump coming in, no conversation with the former president. With the new president, nothing. So what is happening? There definitely is a degradation of the society and the community as a whole. In the long run, if America wants to stay on the top, which we have to, then we need to put our house in order. We need to put the eggs together, our ducks in a row, and work on that. Ukraine war has brought up the Western countries together, the NATO and United States, but at the same time there are two more axis. One is the Chinese axis, one is Russian, of course, which was already there, and India is also coming up. So we have to watch, like in the previous segment I mentioned, if India wants to compete internationally and they want to be a top innovator, they have to give the break to the free speech and freedom of thought. With that note, till next time, good night and good luck.